Hello friends. In this lecture, I will be talking about ecological pyramids. From our previous lectures, we have learnt about the concept of ecosystem, the components of ecosystem. We have looked at the food chain and the food web and the trophic levels. In this lecture, I will be talking about the summarization of all those and including the topic of the ecological pyramids. Now, let us consider an ecosystem, and suppose you want to take a look at the number of organisms at different trophic levels and you want to make a graphical representation out of it. What you will do? You will count the number of producers, you will count the number of the consumers, the primary consumers, the secondary consumers and the tertiary consumers, and you will make a graphical representation out of it. That graphical representation in the form of a pyramid structure is called an ecological pyramids. Okay, first, before going into the details of the ecological pyramids and the different types of ecological pyramids, we should understand what is actually the ecological pyramids. Ecological pyramids are graphical representation of the relationship between different organisms at different trophic levels. It's a graphical representation of the relationships of different organisms which occupy the different trophic levels. This concept was given by Charles Elton, and that's why in some books you will find that ecological pyramids is also called Eltonian pyramids, because the concept of this graphical representation in the form of pyramids was given by Charles Elton. Now we all know what is pyramid. What is a pyramid? You know the structure of the pyramid. A pyramid has a base and also has an apex. So we have the pyramid has a base. This part is called a base of the pyramid and this is called the apex of the pyramid. So this is just to show you that this is a structure of a pyramid, and this is, we have to understand this is called an upright pyramid. So this type of structures is called an upright pyramid because it is standing. So this is an upright pyramid where the base is broad and the apex is narrow at the top. Now if you invert this pyramid, so how the pyramid will look? Okay, so I will just clear this portion and I will draw the pyramid. If you invert that upright pyramid, and the pyramid will look something like this. Now you will find the apex over here and the base over here. If the pyramid is looking like this, we call it as inverted pyramid. So at first you have to understand by looking at the structure of the pyramid which type of pyramid is upright pyramid, which type of pyramids are inverted pyramids. Okay, now let us again come back to our topic of the ecological pyramids. Now in ecosystem, ecological pyramids can be the graphical representation of the number of individuals at different trophic levels. It can be the representation or the graphical sketch of the energy levels at different trophic levels, or the ecological pyramids can be the graphical representation or sketch of the quantity of biomass at different trophic levels. So ecological pyramids can be the graphical representations of either the number of individuals at different trophic level, the amount of energy which is present at different trophic levels, and it can be the quantity of biomass at the different trophic levels. So based on which type of interactions or which type of the concept you are looking at, which type of the graphical representation or which type of the sketches we want to make. Depending on that, there are different types of ecological pyramids. So I'll write it over here. If you want to find out the number of individuals, you want to represent the number of individuals of at different trophic levels in an ecosystem, the pyramid, which the diagram or the graphical representation will be called pyramid of number. That representation will be called a pyramid of number. If you want to graphically represent the amount of energy at different trophic levels in an ecosystem, that representation is called pyramid of energy. And similarly, if you want to represent a want to make a graphical representation of the quantity of biomass at the different trophic levels, that representations is called pyramid of biomass. So there are three types of ecological pyramids. We have the pyramids of number, pyramid of energy, and the pyramid of biomass. What I will do again is that I will divide this topic into 4 small videos, including this one. So in this video, I will talk only about the pyramid of number. In the subsequent video, I will talk about the pyramid of energy. In the third video, I will talk about the pyramid of biomass. And in the last video, I will discuss about the importance and the limitations of ecological pyramids. So in this video, we will talk only about the pyramid of number. So let's clear this part and I will talk about the pyramid of number. Okay. So we are talking about pyramid of number. Now, let us consider an ecosystem. Let us consider a grassland ecosystem. I will consider a grassland ecosystem. Now, let us say in a grassland ecosystem, what are the producers? Normally, if you consider a grassland ecosystem, you will find producers like grasses, small shrubs, very small trees, number of trees, and so the producers will be grasses, which is maximum. Then we have very shrubs and small trees also. So we have plenty of grasses and shrubs and trees. So what I will do is that I will make a block and I will write that this contains let us say grass and shrubs and trees. So this becomes a slab. I have drawn a slab like this. So this is a slab for the producer. And over here I will write the number. What will be the number? Let us say it has many, you know, the number of grasses will be many number of grasses. So you are considering only the number. So number of grasses, shrubs and trees, let us say makes, for example, 100 million. I am writing like this, just a random number, which is a big, huge number, 100 million. Okay. Now let us consider this is which trophic level. Okay. This is which trophic level. Producers are always at which trophic level? Trophic level number 1. So I'll write it over here. It is in trophic level number 1. Now, what are in a grassland normally? What are the herbivores? Or what are the primary consumers? Primary consumers will be herbivores. So what will be the herbivores? Herbivores can be insects, herbivores can be some other animals which feeds on grasses. Let us say it can be some mammals, it can be some other animals. So there will be a plenty amount of herbivores in a grassland ecosystems. So but you have to consider this, which number is greater? Is the number of grasses or the number of the trees, means the number of producers is more, or the number of herbivores is more? Obviously, you will come to know that the number of the grasses or the number of producers will always be more than the number of herbivores. So if we make a second slab over here, so you will find this represent the second slab. This slab will be the herbivores, all the herbivores. So this will be which one? This will be the primary consumer, which trophic level it is, it will be in the trophic level 2. Let us, the numbers, we will consider numbers, let us say 1 million. This number I am taking as a random, we have counted, and just to tell you that obviously the number of the producers will be more as compared to the herbivore. That's why this slab which I have drawn, it's smaller in length as compared to the larger slab. Because what we are actually doing, we are actually making a graphical representation. Okay. Now let us say consider the secondary consumers. What will be the secondary consumers? Secondary consumers will be those which feeds on this primary consumers. So there will be, these organisms will be called what? These organisms will be the primary carnivores or the secondary consumers. So obviously again the thing comes, the number of the secondary consumer will always be less as compared to the herbivores in this grassland ecosystem. So in this grassland ecosystem, so I'll write it down, primary carnivores will be obviously less as compared to the herbivores. So this becomes which, these are, this is primary consumer, I write it over here, secondary consumer, which trophic level it is in, this is trophic level number 3, and the slab is again smaller because number of herbivores is more as compared to the primary consumers. Now if in the grassland ecosystems we have the secondary or the secondary carnivores or the tertiary consumer, so obviously the secondary, it will be less again. So we have the secondary, I am writing like this, secondary carnivore or the tertiary. I will give an example, again that will be clear. Let us say this is tertiary consumer. Tertiary consumer will be at which trophic level? This will be trophic level number 4. And let us say there is one more consumer which is the apex or the apex carnivore or the top carnivore, and it will be very less in number. So this is the top carnivore which is, let us say, quaternary consumer, which is at trophic level number 5. Okay, so I am not writing the numbers, but this is the case. Now it will be easy if I give an example, and we will take our example which we are using from the last lectures. So let us consider this, the producers. I am only considering grass, so the number of grasses is there. Herbivores we are considering, let us say the herbivores, we have considered grasshopper. So what will be the number of grasshopper? Obviously the number of grasshopper will be less as compared to the grasses. Then what is the primary carnivores over here? Primary carnivores will be frog. The number of frogs will be less as compared to the grasshoppers. Similarly, the secondary carnivore, which is the snake, The number of snake, we are considering only number, the number of snake will be as less as compared to the frogs, and the hawk, which is the top carnivore of this grassland ecosystem and this food chain, we have hawk at top carnivore. So number of hawk or number of the higher top carnivore will be always less as compared to the snake. So now this graphical representations which we have done over here is what, at the base we have a big slab and smaller slab on top of it. Now if you see carefully, does this portion, does this diagram look like a pyramid? Does this diagram look like a pyramid structure? So if I draw a pyramid, does this somehow look like this? So if I draw a pyramid and I make these slabs 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5, and the representation is like this. So at the lower we say this is grass, then we put the herbivores. Over here we are using grasshopper, then we have the frog, then we have the snake, and at the top we have the hawk. So now this representation shows that number of the producers is more, then the primary consumers is less as compared to the producers, secondary consumers is less as compared to the primary consumer, tertiary consumer is less as compared to the secondary consumer, and the top carnivore or the quaternary consumer is less as compared to the tertiary consumer. So this representation of the number of the components or number of the individuals, number of organisms at different trophic levels, this representation gives a pyramid shape, and this pyramid is called the pyramid of number. So for a pyramid of number we have to mention the number also. So let us say grasses are more, again I am writing, say let us say 10 million grasses is there. Grasshopper, let us say there are 10,000 grasshoppers were there. Frogs, let us say for example frogs, there are some 1,000 frogs were there. Snakes, as compared to this, there are suppose say 623 snakes were there. Hawk, let us say there are only 25 hawks were there. So you can see the number of the members of that at different trophic levels goes on decreasing, and the shape of the pyramid is like this. So which type of pyramid is this? We have discussed about the two types of pyramids. Which type of pyramid is this? So this is an upright pyramid. More specifically, what we will call this? We will call this an upright pyramid of number, because we are representing only the number of organisms at each trophic level. So this is the upright pyramid of number. Now let us do one thing. Let us take a different ecosystem. Now we had taken grassland ecosystem over here. Let us take a different ecosystems with a different type of food chain. Okay, now I will clear this portion again. So I hope you have understood what we are doing. We are only representing the number of individuals at each trophic level in a given ecosystem. We are still talking about the pyramid of number, and now we are taking an ecosystem. Now what I am doing is that I am writing tree ecosystem. Now what do you mean by tree ecosystem? If you consider a tree as an ecosystem itself, so you consider there is a tree and you consider, okay, this tree is an ecosystem alone, and let us look at the organisms which is present at each trophic level, considering this tree as an ecosystem itself. So what will be the producer? Let us say, so what will be the producer? I will write it over here. So it will be clear first. What will be the producer? What will be the producer in this tree ecosystem? Obviously, it will be the tree itself, because the tree itself is a producer. It is the autotroph. So what is the number of the producer over here in this case? Obviously, it's a single tree, so the number will be only 1. So the producer number, I'll write number over here. So it will be, and write trophic level over here. So let us make a table. Let us make a table. So number, and this is the trophic level. Trophic level is the producer trophic level. The number is only 1. Now let us say in a tree there are some birds or which feeds on the leaves, some herbivore birds. They feeds on the fruits or they feed on the leaves. They depend primarily on the green plant, or they primarily depend on the tree for its food. So there are some herbivore birds which feed on the fruits or the green plants, leaves, and they feed on this tree. So I'll write some birds, I'll take example, the birds which are the primary consumer. These are herbivore birds. So let us say it's a big tree and there are about 70 birds. The birds, there are 70 birds. Now what happens is that on birds there can be some parasites. So in a single bird you find there are some ticks. Tick are the parasite, ectoparasites. They can live on the bird's body and they feed on the blood from the birds. They get the nutrients from the bird itself. So they can be also part of the trophic levels because they are feeding on this birds itself. The type of food chain we are talking now is of a parasitic food chain. We had talked about a grazing food chain before and a detritus food chain. Now this is a different type of food chain. We are talking about parasitic food chain. So we are considering parasites in our food chain. Now so on birds, I tell you that suppose a single bird have, let us say, 200 parasites on them, which is living, which is feeding on the blood of the bird. So 70 birds are there and we have 200 parasites on them. So I'll write over here some parasites, or I'll write, give name, sorry, I'm sorry for this. This is consumer. Then I have tick, which becomes the secondary consumer, and there are, let us say, 2000 parasites. Considering all the birds, there are 2000 parasites on them, which is sucking blood. Now we had the number now. Now how can you represent this graphically in the form of pyramids? And you have to remember this, always the producers will be at the bottom, then the primary consumer, then the secondary consumer, then the tertiary consumer. It will be like this. Whenever you're talking about ecological pyramids, the graphical representation should be like this. The producer should be always at the bottom. And considering that, you have to do a number. Considering that, you have to build up the graphical representation. So over here, the producer is only 1. So let us make a small block about the producer. So this is a small block, only 1. What is the number of birds? 70. Obviously, it is more than 1. Graphical representation I have made birds 70. What is the number of tick or the secondary consumer? It is 2000. Obviously, it is more than 70. So the graphical representation is like this, 2000. Okay. So I'll make this also colored shade out, just to show you, nothing to do about the shading, but just to show you. Now, is this type of graphical representations is similar with the graphical representation we have seen in a grassland ecosystem, or something is different is there? In the grassland ecosystem, there also the producer was at the bottom. Then we had the primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, quaternary consumer. Over here also it is the same thing. Producer at the bottom, then we have the primary consumer, then the secondary consumer. But what is the difference between that and this one? Now, if we draw again the pyramid shape from here, let us consider a pyramid like this. So how the triangle will look like? It will look like something like this, where the producers are less over here, producer is less. Then we have the primary consumer, then we have the secondary consumer. Which type of pyramid is this? Is it a upright pyramid or is it a inverted pyramid? Is it upright pyramid or is it a inverted pyramid? Obviously, this is not an upright pyramid. This will be an inverted pyramid. So, which type of pyramid we will call this? This we will call it is an inverted pyramid of number. So, this is what? This is a inverted pyramid of number. So, if we consider a tree ecosystem, and we consider this type of a parasitic food chain, you will find the pyramid of number is inverted. So, pyramid of numbers can be upright. We saw in the grassland ecosystem. Pyramid of number can be inverted also. We have seen in this, considering a tree ecosystem. So, pyramid of numbers can be upright, it can be inverted also. Now, there can be a third type of pyramid. That is not a pyramid, but a third type of representation. We will consider this tree ecosystem itself, but we will consider a different food chain and we will talk about that. So, I am not rubbing this tree ecosystem. So, we have understood this is an inverted pyramid. Now, we are considering a tree ecosystem and I will keep this table also over here. Let us say this. Producer, again in this case, in a tree ecosystem, producer is 1 because this is an autotroph. So, the producer is 1 only. The number of producer is 1. Let us say there are some, again the small birds are there which feed on the tree, the product of the tree, they feed on the leaves, they feed on some fruits. So, there are some herbivore birds which are primary consumer. So, these are small birds. So, what are the small birds? How many number? Let us say again it is about 50 birds are there residing on this tree. Now, there can be some big birds like hawk which feeds on the small birds which is residing on this tree. So, there is, let us say there are 2 hawks, they know that there are 50 small birds which reside in this tree and they feed on those. So, what will be then the secondary consumer? The secondary consumer, let us say some carnivorous big birds, let us, it can be big owls or big eagles or it can be some hawks. They feed on the small birds which reside in this tree. And what will be the number of that big birds? Let us say only 2 hawk or 2 eagle knows that there are 50 small birds which live in that tree and they feed on that. Consider that ecosystem. The ecosystem present in that tree where only 50 small birds are there, they feed on those and there are 2 hawks which feed on those small birds. Now, let us consider this number values. Then how we will represent this type of values? What is the producer? Producer will always be at the bottom again. So, producer, the number is 1. Make a block. What is the primary consumer? What is the number of the primary consumer over here? 50. So, obviously it is more than 50. So, primary consumer number is 50, the small birds. What is the number of the secondary consumer, the big birds in case of this ecosystem, in this tree ecosystem? Only 2. Again, the number is smaller, it goes on smaller. So, secondary consumer, it is 2. Now, look at the shape of this graphical representation over here. It is not like upright pyramid, it is not like inverted pyramid. So it is something where the center part is much more larger as compared to the other part. The center region is, this center region is more as compared to this part, other part. Over here, this is the producer. This part is the secondary consumer, and this center region, which is more 50, is the primary consumer. Whenever you find primary consumer, whenever you find this type of representation, this type of representation is called a spindle form. Spindle. It's like a spindle form. So we can say that the pyramid of number can be of three types. It can be an upright pyramid. Pyramid of numbers can be an inverted pyramid. Even pyramid of number can be a spindle pyramid. Not pyramid, it can be a spindle type. So pyramid of numbers can be of three types. It can be upright, it can be inverted, and it can be a spindle form also. So I hope you have understood what we are talking about. We are talking about only the numbers of the organisms, number of individuals at each trophic level in a given ecosystem. And what we are doing a graphical representation. We are making a graphical representation in the form of a pyramid shape. And always we have to consider in the pyramids of numbers, or even for all the ecological pyramids, always the producers will be at the bottom, then the primary consumer, then the secondary consumer, then the tertiary consumer. And then you have to look at the shape, whether it is upright, whether it is inverted, or whether it is a spindle shape. So I hope you have understood this pyramid of number. So pyramid of number is the graphical representation of the number of interacting individuals at each trophic level in a given ecosystem. So it comes many times, question comes for multiple choice that the pyramid of numbers is always upright, whether it is true or false. No, it can be inverted also, it can be spindle shaped also. So you have to understand this concept. And always you can also think something like this. Suppose you are looking at a pond ecosystems. Now you consider in a pond ecosystem, what will be, if you consider a typical pond ecosystem, what will be the type of the pyramids of number in a pond ecosystem? You can find out. There are phytoplanktons, there are zooplanktons which feed on phytoplanktons, there are small fishes which feed on those zooplanktons, there are large fishes which feed on those small fishes. So you can make up like that. You have to consider only the number. Okay. So I hope this is clear about pyramid of number. In the next lecture, I will talk about the pyramid of biomass. Then I'll talk about the pyramid of energy. And in the last part, I'll talk about the importance as well as some limitations in these ecological pyramids.